Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for me to cast some more Cosmonarchy. Welcome to the channel. We have Shopkeeper Dog, a Terran who has pretty recently joined the ranks, against JarrellStorm, a Zerg who's been around for a little bit longer than Dog has. And we're going to go to Endpoint, a port of our point, commissioned by Hit 'em Up and done by myself. Let's get into it, boys. We have vertical spawns here with JarrellStorm in the top right as the... Arrowlight yellow is not the color. Is it lemon? It is lemon, and we've got Shopkeeper Dog in the bottom right as the, I'm going to just say, Ultramarine Terran. All right, 100% color guess, and this is not a series, this is a single game, so I have 100% color guess accuracy for this particular one. ZVT, we actually haven't seen too much ZVT lately, so I am eager to check that out and show you guys what's going on in this matchup and learn a little bit myself, as a matter of fact. These two are aspirant class players. That means that they have been grinding it up, or sorry, the Herald class players, excuse me, grinding it up, and that is the penultimate class, really the second highest. So these are the challengers. These players have shown, based on their play, based on their level of, general ability to adapt and practice, and also because they're grinders a little bit. They play a lot of games. I play pretty regularly, usually like every day, if not, maybe they skip one day out of a week or something. And, JarrellStorm, Shopkeeper Dog, they've been grinding it out, playing some matches. Dog does not like himself any bio or healing or anseals, but besides that, he loves the race. And, JarrellStorm over here is a little bit more about the one-base Larvosk openers. It looks like that's what he's going to be choosing to do here. So in ZVT, there's been this revelation where some people are going for like 2 Folk openers or like 1 Folk expand and then adding 2 or 3 more afterwards. Folk being Fulcrum, obviously the renamed factory. The main advantage of such a play is that you're going to get a lot of vultures out early, and with JarrellStorm sticking it out onto 1 base, I wonder if that's because of how open the naturals are on this particular map. He might be thinking to himself he wants the Larvosk for the larva production, but also maybe wanted to not necessarily extend himself too far out, because you look at the bases here, the choke point is pretty wide, and they also have the ramp to go up here in, right? So if you're thinking about it from that perspective, it can be quite difficult. And I guess on this map in particular, you also think about the expansion timings and stuff. Shopkeeper Dog moving out to his own natural. Again, look at how the choke point that you're actually going to try to hold is over here, right? And Zerg is a race that, in general, can definitely pressure some interesting things with air units later on in the game. So that is going to be a canceled anchor. I like the idea of it, and it is good to try to pressure somebody who's going to go for a Larvosk opener. The pool is now done, but the Vulture's about to get in here, so I'm going to go ahead and reckon we're going to lose a couple of workers here. But instead, Dog is actually trying to hit the larva instead, which is an interesting choice. I don't know that he's going to be able to actually break the Larvosk by himself. He's going to go ahead and lay the mine. I think that does actually, that does get tripped, and it will stop the units from actually being made during the stun. So that's kind of an interesting thing about that. The lobotomy mine obviously stunning units, and including eggs in this particular case. It's pretty neat. Now the Quasilisks are going to go ahead and try to hold the fort down. We've got a K-Grint by the ramp so that he can make sure to hold this position against additional units coming up over here. We're going to go up to 3 Vultures. And at that point, they do start to do a lot of damage to the Quasis. But using the Cliff Advantage, which gives you +2 weapon range when shooting at units at a lower height level than you, that's our version of replacing the 50% mischance, approximately, that you'll end up having in StarCraft 1 by default. We think it's a lot better. It's obviously not RNG, so that helps it. 4 Vultures. And of course, the Ovaleth is here to try to transfer the K-Grint over. So that's going to be an interesting choice there. We're going to have to wait and see on that one. What to do? Okay, so the mines are going to start to get cleared from a range. You got a little bit of a standoff going on. Meanwhile, of course, the Ministry is now complete. So Dog taking the natural improvement. And this is one of those situations where, like, sure, you can say, oh, it's a very risky proposition for me to go for the natural super early. But at the same time, you're not going to get contained onto 1 base like this in this fashion, right? And so Vultures do win out versus the Quasis in general. As you can see, they definitely have the mobility improvement there. And despite being within vision range of that Ovaleth, it looks like that mine was not going to be the target of JarrellStorm as he tries to move out. They don't automatically get acquired over Vultures when you're looking on a generic A move. So that definitely helps. In this case, it looks like Dog is actually seeding a lot of his mines, which maybe is not what you want to do there. Oh, there we go. We end up stunning a couple of extra Quasis. Now we have 3 pairs of Zeths coming. A couple of Quasis did just hatch. So Jarrell will be able to break out from this position, and he does have a lot of larva production. He's going to go up to 4 larvae every 14 seconds. So that is a way to think about it. Like, he's going to have units fairly frequently. He's going to come out here and clear the mines once again. Dog trying to maybe arc in and just continue to pepper down some of the units in terms of HP. Wants to drag him in, and look at that. It is going to work on a stun, but he's not going to pounce on that. There's a few too many units for Dog to feel comfortable with. Let's check the base. He's actually gone for a very, I would say, I want to say this is a very greedy push, because you got to remember that the Zerg can power up from this position on 4 larvae every 14 seconds. They can make a lot of military units and just flood you. But I don't think JarrellStorm expects the extra expansion. So this is a bit of a mind game for Dog. It's allowing him to get ahead more. But, you know, you think about it, like, how could I possibly lose a game where I've denied the Zerg the expansion for a very long time? Well, one of the ways that you can do that is by being a little bit too brittle and overextended. And that does feel like something that could happen when the Ovoleth is already out, so you know you can get scouted. Now it looks like over here he's actually killed that Circuith so that he can make it into a Larvosk. We do have a single Cyclops for anti-air, but this is going to go for a straight-up drop. And I don't know if Dog even knows that it's a drop. He might just think it's a scout. In fact, yeah, he's actually going to allow the Ovoleth to come in here for the drop. This is going to do some damage. At least a few Masons should end up going down here. And that's definitely something that you got to watch out for, right? Because when you're looking at the way that these units actually work, there's definitely going to be some worker disruption there. It doesn't look like only one worker actually dies. He does end up getting a little bit of economic damage, and of course the Ovoleth is going to fully scout, including seeing the Ministry down here in that third base location. So JarrellStorm will know that his opponent has gone for a more macro-oriented play. He did just lose a lot of his military units, so that means that our Zerg player is not really going to be able to step to the opponent, who has gotten some bruised but still effective mech units in play. And his army is big enough that Dog is going to inspire some respect. Put some respect on the name. In fact, he might even catch this Ovoleth on the way. The Cyclops will do a little bit of damage. There was a Goliath with that force. Oh, there it is. It was just dragging ass a little bit there, yeah. And now look at this. Dog waiting a little bit more extra time so that he can try to finish off the job there. One more Goliath hit will do it. And the Cyclops steal the kill with their hit scan attack. We got some static defense being mutated over here at the natural JarrellStorm, making 4 pairs of Nathracores. That's going to be for a counterattack most likely. Or he can try to clear the Cyclops and the other anti-air units like the Goliath. He does a brilliant job of that. Remember, Zethracores are going to force friendly splash onto some of these mech units. But unfortunately for JarrellStorm, it looks like he's about to meet his maker over here, canceling a couple of these units. The Nathracores are out. Does he end up deploying them? He's going to pick off the Cyclops immediately. Needs to get off that other one because, again, the splash damage is going to really wreak havoc over there. And the Circuith does end up finishing. That will occupy the Vultures if Dog is not careful. He's not focusing down workers here. Instead, spending a lot of his DPS on a Circuith that doesn't even go down. A couple of workers did end up dying, but JarrellStorm only behind by 3 workers. You can make that up very easily. Remember, he's up to 5 larvae every 14 seconds now. So that's something where every, about that amount of time in order to make a Mason, right? Every 15 seconds, he's making a Mason, making 3 of them, while every 14, you got the other guy going the other way. So making a little bit more workers than you if he so chooses. That Watchdog is going to get destroyed, not canceled. Meanwhile, the attack forces are going to go ahead and buck up against the rest of the mech. That's not really going to work out too well in favor of JarrellStorm, who is going to go for a Zorka's follow-up here. The Madrigal is really good at anti-air, particularly in this kind of use case where you're dealing with a swarming, stacking up units. The Nathracores are going to be able to get a little bit more, power over here. They should pick 2 Masons. Maybe a third one if they target the right one here, but it doesn't look like Jarrell's done that. So, yeah, it just goes away with 2 Mason kills. But he did kill a number of them over here. So that's a combined total of something like 6. And we have more Nathracores on the way. The Madrigal was pulled back into the main, and they are pretty fast and pretty long range. You could probably station it, like, right here and hold position, and it would be able to deal a lot of damage. Oh, we do have another one moving over here on an attack move, though. He needs to micro it. Dog does not want to lose this one. And the Nathracores get a little bit faster when they hit their attack. They get that little bit of burst of movement speed. So that is going to be an expensive loss, because those do cost a little bit of gas. Now the workers not being pulled away does mean that the Madrigals are going to have a hard time actually enforcing this position. Goliath and a Watchdog in here is going to be enough to deal with these Nathracores, but yet again, they are going to get a little bit of worker harassment in. We haven't really been looking at the Zerg base because I think it's important to see how much damage Dog has been taking, but you just look at the worker count in the top right. It's workers over military. He's got an okay worker count here. He's doing all right. 12 o'clock now being taken by JarrellStorm, and that is where he's going to get his third base. But remember, he is down in terms of military. He is down in terms of, your macro style, right? And though he has the Zorkas, he's not actually turning it into Gorgacores just yet. The Goliath count is so high that Gorgacores would be a death sentence. What we need to see out of Jarrell is probably Zoryu's Lake is to go along with his tanky front line of Vorvacores. These are advanced Zethracores that are going to deal less DPS, but they apply ensnare and an armor debuff. So you're talking about a pretty powerful debuff there from the Vorvs that can try to isolate this force. And even though the Goliaths are obviously going to look very fearsome, if you can get the right kind of surround, well, this Terran army doesn't have to stay alive for too much longer. 7 Lakizelisks on the way. A good burrow, a good engagement is all that the Zerg needs to get back into this game and really try to stabilize by expanding outward more, because Dog is not actually further expanded. The Madrigal is going to deploy and start firing at the ground instead. Unfortunately for Shopkeeper Dog, though, his forces are a little bit split, so that Madrigal is going to go down. There's only one left, and of course the Cyclops. So if there was to be a Gorgacore switch, well, they could at least splash the Goliaths a little bit there. Some nice spines there. Remember, the Lakizilisk, unlike the Lurker, actually has the spines returned to it. So that ends up being pretty pricey for Dog. He loses a couple of Goliaths, and a lot of his units are bruised. Remember what I said at the beginning of the game, he does not like healing. So any damage that you sustain at this point, it's probably permanent. Tier 2 now on the way. JarrellStorm playing a little bit fast and loose. Remember, Shopkeeper Dog has the macro advantage. He puts his own Tier 2 down at about the same time. Terran Tier 2 hits a little bit faster, but he does need to equip himself with additional structures, be it captaincies, which is a Dog favorite. Also, he sometimes goes mantles for that extra walker power. That's another thing that he could absolutely do. He's, nearing 1,000 minerals. He's going to go ahead and grab a 4th base, float it over towards that 6 o'clock position. And I'm not sure where this one's going to go. Maybe it's sort of the interior island on his side. But right now, he could definitely pressure the Lakizelisks. He is making a star pad. I think that's going to end up being for the Antseal. He doesn't usually like to make it, but it does give you detection. So it will allow the Lakizelisks to be revealed. You can actually engage with the army. I think his reticence to build that definitely means... I mean, the other thing, too, is that you need the Stockade, which is a replacement for the Barracks. It has an add-on called the Vestry, effectively working as a way to train clerics and such. And that's one of those things where... basically, you need that for detection as well. Like, you can choose to use that for detection, but because Dog doesn't really like either of those units, he's not really going to end up making... either of them, and that's actually allowed JarrellStorm to maybe stabilize a little bit. He's expanding towards his opponent, which is a little bit ballsy, but he is going to go up to the Calcure Lake. He's also getting the Spire. So what is he going to end up doing with that? We did see the Cyclops move up towards 12 o'clock. I think with the number of units there, you can probably surmise. I don't think he saw any Kagra, which is our term for creep, but I don't think he saw that on the minimap, but at the same time, he's able to surmise that there's probably a 3rd base up in that point, right? So, Shopkeeper Dog considering his actions, considering his options. He's going to go ahead and drop a single captaincy and a single mantle right now. A little bit gated on the gas. He could start capping his geysers. He is going to go ahead and land at 6 o'clock. Only offers him a single gas, but a good amount of minerals, so he can start really slamming those out. And maybe that's another option for him if he wants to go like mass captaincy. They are about 250 or 300 minerals or something like that. Another base being made. This ministry just about finished. It is going to be flying all the way towards the bottom left, a natural, actually. An interesting choice. And remember, neither player really knows what the other person is up to, right? We're going to get 6 pairs of Nathacores. Those are undoubtedly going to turn into Calculisks now that this structure is actually finished. And with the Spire done as well, JarrellStorm has an opportunity to consider what he wants to do next. With 3k minerals in the bank, I'd love to see him expand in a couple more locations, but he is also potentially going to get busted here. I mean, the lake his count is really high, but the Phalanxes are out now as well, and they can really force the Zerg player to start really considering where they're going to go. And in fact, all of the military is pretty much off to the right-hand side. So Dog has to make a decision here. Is he going to pressure the furthest away base and allow Jarrell to potentially counterattack? Or is he actually going to, fall back and be a little bit more fast and loose? The burrow is good to keep the workers alive, but remember the Antseal does detect. At this point, though, I think Dog senses, I've picked the Hatcherusk, I need to get out of here as soon as possible because the army is going to be enormous. And indeed it is. We can see that on our screens right now. Many Calculisks being made as well. That's going to allow to splash things like that Antseal, maybe get a little bit of DPS done to some of those Phalanxes while they're in siege mode. They lose their armor by comparison. The Antseal now revealing some of those Lakizelisks. Going to be very important. And we are going to start to see some of them get splattered. If only he had a 3rd one, actually parked up over here. In fact, his defensive line isn't superb right now. The Antseal's going to go ahead and get immediately sniped by those 10 Calculisks. We talked about how that would actually end up working out very nicely. And he only made 1 Antseal, so he does not have backup detection. Maybe a bit of a foible there from Dog, but the engagement is still a little bit sloppy here from Jarrell. He's having a hard time actually moving his army down there and getting onto the enemy forces. His Lakizelisks are not joining the fight either, so that's a lot of resources not being put in here. But there is no anti-air splash damage, so these Calculisks are actually reigning supreme, with the Zoryus occupying so much of the anti-ground forces, and many of those Phalanxes not actually in siege mode. That definitely bodes very poorly for our Terran player. He is going to go ahead and continue teching in the background of this. He is adding more and more units of the tier 2 variety, so he should be able to stabilize here. It's all about JarrellStorm's follow-up, though, and he is starting to make those Lyrilisks. The tier 2 of Zerg can sometimes be very overwhelming. Dog did a good move shutting down 12 o'clock, but is it going to be enough of a cut to the eco to allow him to stabilize and maybe even do some more damage? You know, the Lakers are going to wrap around over here, but he's going to need to stand on them so he can actually see them. There is still no Anseal on the front lines. So I feel like a lot of those units are going to get bopped. Meanwhile, of course, this position would have been an easy option to siege, but does Dog know that? I don't think he's actually been able to do too much scouting. This mine does not have enough vision range to actually see the Kagra here, I'm pretty sure. So he might be none the wiser to the fact that a fourth base was already up. And look at this. A bunch of workers actually idle over here, but the minerals are going to start being harvested, and so JarrellStorm will still be able to get a lot of action out of that. He's actually got a lot of Vespene in the tank, and, well, speaking of the tank, the Phalanx ends up going down. So we are up to 5 bases for our Terran player. It's nothing to scoff at whatsoever, so he can definitely still afford to do a lot of damage here. In fact, he did make this other ministry. I'm surprised he hasn't tried to take this position. Maybe the calculus is giving him some pause as he has to consider what he's going to be doing next. We've got more and more captaincies being made. I feel like that he could have maybe powered on that a little bit more. The Seraph coming out, not only detection, but also irradiate, and of course the ability to paint nuclear strikes if we end up getting to that position. Although I don't think I've ever seen Dog do that. This base at 6 o'clock going to get harassed. I think the Ministry should actually be able to stay alive because it has so much armor. But I don't even know if Dog wants to bother with that. He's just going to go ahead and attack the main force, and if the calculus get caught up, or many of the ground units get caught up, then maybe that's actually a good thing. Jarrell not even bothering to engage with the calcs, though. He's going to go over here and try to get some more damage dealt to some of these workers, which are going to be evacuated. So Dog on top of that, and just pushing the Zerg army back, really rendering it mostly dead. There are a large number of calculusks being made in the middle of the map that didn't end up getting caught, and what is that, 10 Lakizilisks burrowed. This base still now a little bit in jeopardy. Feels like Dog is getting run around all across the map right now. Meanwhile, top left, third base being taken by JarrellStorm, and the Irradiate does go live onto those Calculusks. It doesn't deal as much damage as Starcraft 1 Irradiate, but it softens them up so much, and the Cataphracts are out as well, that the multi-target might be able to just do what it needs to do here. That being said, this Calculus count is still very deadly. Looks like JarrellStorm wants to consolidate more of them, though. Not ready to give them up just yet. And more Goliaths dying on the left-hand side of the map. That's going to give it off to JarrellStorm. We see battles on multiple fronts. And 6 o'clock, even though indeed the Ministry survived, not very many workers actually there. These Lakizilisks are going to get maybe caught up over here. Where is that Seraph? We need it for detection, and we need it for Irradiate. The workers are going to get shredded by these Lakizilisk spines as soon as they target them. And I think that might actually be it for the natural harvesting. He needs to cancel those Masons and lift it off. The workers just getting absolutely massacred. Now JarrellStorm up by something like 25 workers. That is going to be significant. The Seraph remaining far away from the Calculusks. Very worried about the counterplay there. And the Cataphract's now going to siege down those Lakizilisks from a safe distance. So that should be the end of that particular attack. We don't have any more burrowed attackers coming out for JarrellStorm. He is going to go ahead and start making more tanky frontliners, and he is making 15 Lyrilisks right now. Very, very powerful units. You look at these guys, they move very fast. They have a bounce attack similar to a Mutalisk. They are very, very speedy, and they can definitely reposition around the map very easily. So they are going to start down, once again, trying to shut down 6 o'clock, and the army for Shopkeeper Dog is not actually in a good position to respond just yet. He is definitely oversaturated at this base over here, and has never decided to take the bottom left main. This Ministry is going to be down. Seraph in a good position, though. Might be able to drop an Irradiate. Needs to worry about a snipe. Oh, no, Shopkeeper Dog has went way too far with that one. And he's not got another one to hand just yet, it doesn't look like. He's actually making a new one back right now. You can see in the top right there with the production view. Many more Calculusks being made. Meanwhile, Shopkeeper Dog, his opponent is very gas-starved, but it doesn't really matter that much because he's taking more and more of the map, although he's never actually resaturated the gas at 12 o'clock. That attack from Shopkeeper Dog, I think adding up quite a bit over time in terms of lost Vespene. JarrellStorm not realizing that he's left that going for, I want to say, 5 minutes now. Getting into banger territory with this game length, we'll see if it continues, because the Calculusks are descending upon this force. The Phalanxes are going to try to make mincemeat out of all of those Lyrilisks, and yeah, there's another Seraph here for a good Irradiate on top of the air stack. That's beautiful! Anticipating the movements, that's going to add up to so much damage, and the Cataphracts might actually be able to survive. Wow, they do! I can't believe it. An Azazel there for defensive matrix would have been great, but JarrellStorm, he is already routed without it. Shopkeeper Dog feeling a little bit better, perhaps. His army getting much harder to actually penetrate once he has those Cataphracts in enough number. But I feel like he's still very slow, and it's hard for him to actually move around. He doesn't have much, hardly any static defense at all that we can see. No Sentinels to deal with the Lyrilisks, no Watchdogs to deal with the Calcs. wants to instead maybe take the fight to his opponent and attack where he doesn't suspect his enemy has a lot of forces. So many Zethra cores as well coming out from different positions as the top left third base is top left natural is now being taken. It looks like JarrellStorm has his eyes on that. So many Zethra cores getting bopped on the middle of the map, but the rest of these are going to be able to run by. And remember what I said about no sentinels. There is no static defense happening whatsoever. There's an irradiate from the Seraph, but it will get sniped in response. So these Calculisks are going to end up getting overwhelmed, it looks like. But they do force the army to come on back home. A couple of Goliaths powering through as many Zethra cores as they can. No micro there for Shopkeeper Dog as he's busy elsewhere. We've got plenty more Calculisks being made. It feels like maybe... Oh, JarrellStorm could deny this base so easily if he wanted to. He just has to look at the minimap. The Zethra cores have such a low attack range. There we go. The acquisition range actually kicking in there. Maybe JarrellStorm actually hitting them with the attack, I think, is probably what happened. But, yep, indeed. Parking himself here for more control in the top left. Zorius overwhelming a Phalanx. Well, that wasn't on my bingo card, but hey, you see so many different things for the first time every time you watch a long game of Cosmonarchy, I feel like. Maybe even a medium game, depending on how new you are to the project. This base going to go ahead and land. The workers mostly being massacred, it looks like, but... or no, actually, I think most of them ended up getting away. So that's pretty nice there for Shopkeeper Dog. He's only down by 40 workers. I say only. There needed to be an irradiate, and it needed to be targeted a little bit better than that. It looks like JarrellStorm had some quick thinking there to foible his opponent's task there. Oh, but he walks back into it. Oh, no, that's not where you want to be. Oh, God. It doesn't deal stacking damage anymore, so you don't have to split your army, per se, but it does deal more damage over time if you stand in it, right? Like, it's basically reapplying the damage over and over again, and so that it takes the same amount of time. Protathalors, not the most cheap unit. You don't really want to be throwing them away if you can help it. My God. So it's a very back-and-forth game, very open-ended right now as to who's going to take it, although I definitely favor the Zerg, and I have for a little bit of time now. But he doesn't have that much Vespene, right? Has he saturated his 12 o'clock gas? He still has not even seen the workers here, let alone actually saturated the gas. He has not capped his gas either. Remember, once you hit tier 2, you can build the gas caps. They increase the gas yield from 5 Vespene per return to a whopping 7 Vespene per return. And these Sentinels are going to come online. I think they might actually be a little bit too late. We'd need to see some workers respond to this threat by killing the Zeths. Otherwise, yeah, those Sentinels are going down. Maybe the one in the back will actually finish. Meanwhile, another good irradiate there, zoning away some of the Calculisks. We have Protathalor starting to focus fire some of these mech units. I'm not sure it's going to be enough for JarrellStorm, though. I do feel like the Cataphracts and the Phalanxes, they're in such number, but look at the Protathalor count and some Lyrilisks coming in for reinforcements. The air units have all but fallen, but I feel like it might be okay here for JarrellStorm. He just doesn't have that many units in rotation, so the only units he's got in production are frontline units. He needs to keep these Protathalors alive so that he can actually get some good DPS there. And falling back as the Phalanx is deployed, that's a good move. He's bled a lot of the Terran army, so he should be able to short-circuit any future pushes. That was very, very important for him to fall back. You kind of think about it like Starcraft 1 PVT, where the siege tanks are deployed, they're killing all the Zealots. As soon as the Zealots fall away, move those Dragoons back. That's basically what JarrellStorm just did, but with the Zerg equivalent of the Protathalor. That does have a pretty good range. But not as good as of a range as the Phalanxes. He might be able to pick one, but he doesn't need to think about falling back here. Where is that front line that he needs? It's not actually even taking the shots. The Protathalors are the ones taking the shots instead. More units coming on down to occupy them. Okay, that's not too bad, but you need to focus down those Phalanxes. The Zerg army, they tend to clump up together a lot more, so the splash damage is really what you want to focus down. And look at that. Looks like it's going to be worth it. The stutter step, I feel like he's being egoed by these Cataphracts. They're walking paper tigers, you know what I mean? Like, you could just kill them. But the Zethra Corps is kind of on a walk move instead of an A move. There you go. They're going to be able to get rid of most of those Cataphracts, and that's going to do it for this attack, I think. At this point, the Protathalor should be able to deal with this. And indeed, Shopkeeper Dog is going to call it quits. 5 Gorga cores now being produced. I mean, you've got rid of most of the anti-air. It makes sense. You can send those bad boys in. They're kind of like flying Ultralisks. You can think of them as. You send them into the mineral line, and you just start sweeping away at them. Meanwhile, of course, JarrellStorm still trying to produce a lot of Zorius, right? He's maybe focusing mostly on mineral-heavy composition. Zorius do not require any Vespene. And there you have it. The Zoriustaleth. It's out there. I don't know, though. I'm really nervous for Shopkeeper Dog moving across the map without really knowing exactly what's going on. I think maybe he's still not used to playing without scan. I don't know. There's something about that. We don't have scan or sweep in the game, so you have to actively scout your opponent. JarrellStorm now going to have his bases over here pressured and potentially destroyed. What are we going to see as a response from JarrellStorm? Is he just going to go ahead and attack? It looks like he's going to fight fire with fire by hitting a bit of a counter push over here, and he will be able to deny the Watchdog at 99%, of course. Not that it really matters too much in this case. descending upon the forces over here. This is going to make Shopkeeper Dog think about maybe falling back. He does have more units coming out here. The Gorgor is delaying the rest of the mech units actually reinforcing from the rally point there. But Shopkeeper Dog's forces elsewhere are continuing to move over. They are going to shut down 12 o'clock, although that still never had any Vespene mining, so it's all good. Shopkeeper Dog might be being overwhelmed right now by JarrellStorm's attack force. Where are his rally points set to? It looks like they are now being corrected. So maybe that will help him out a little bit, but he is going to start losing his natural. It was already depleted, so it's not the end of the world. This base is a little bit more consequential, I would say, especially this base over here, although it's not well saturated either, right? Still no Vespene being harvested there. I feel like if JarrellStorm doesn't actually win with this push, he's in a really rough spot because he doesn't have the economy to continue attacking or making that many units. He never ended up teching up. He never really got additional tech structures. Don't be fooled. He has access to like maybe 10 more units than what you're seeing here. We don't see a Vigorlisks or Matroleths or Convolisks or anything of the sort. So there's definitely a number of units that he could be making that might be, you know, worthy of inclusion in his composition. But right now he's not quite doing that. Gorgor is going to come in and maybe try to focus down the Seraph, but the anti-air is going to clean them up. And I feel like maybe JarrellStorm might just be running out of steam right now. I just don't see how he's going to be able to clump his army up together, even if he had a bunch of Zoryus. Okay, the Gorgs might be able to deal some damage, but I do think that he's really hurting right now. That gas that he never mined from 12 o'clock could have been a game swinger. Oh, here comes the Gorgor Corps to maybe see if they can focus down the Seraphs, but they attack it with a different attack versus air. Their splash damage attack only hits the ground, so that's not going to work out for JarrellStorm. And it looks like he's down to just his last 3 Protathalors. He does have the circuits, but he's going to call GG. He doesn't have the economy to continue, and that 25-minute game, Shopkeeper Dog is able to reign supreme. I am very surprised about the nature of that game. I do think that Jarrell is going to be kicking himself when he watches this cast, as he often does, and sees, oh my god, I didn't mine from 12 o'clock gas that whole time. It would have made a significant difference. But he also didn't saturate his top left main. He didn't really saturate any of the gases with like a gas cap, right? So he wasn't maybe feeling safe enough, because when you do play for the gas cap, it does slow your gas harvesting until the structure is finished, right? So there is that as a potential reason for you to think, oh, maybe I shouldn't actually go for this sort of thing, right? Maybe I shouldn't actually, cap my gas because it's going to slow me down. But still, a very, very cool game. And I'm glad I was able to bring it to you. That was Endpoint, an interesting map. I don't think I've actually shown it on a cast over before. Whether or not it'll end up making it into the Class 1 map pool remains to be seen. I feel like it might be a little bit too non-standard when it comes to like choke points and stuff. But, that could always change as well. So you never know what's going to happen. But join our Discord server, play Cosmonarchy, check out our coffee link in the bottom right to donate towards project development. And I will be seeing you guys very soon for more exciting games just like that one.